Hello, everybody. This is Charlie, and this is another episode of Something to Talk About. And this is an episode on something to really think about as well. And that is that your children do not belong to you. You might think they do, but they seriously do not. Now, we've all heard that saying, I brought you into this world and I can take you out. Now, I've heard that and I've used that, and I'm not sure if I, did it on a joking way or if I did that in a threatening way, but it doesn't matter. We've all used that or heard that in some sort of a funny or, let's get their attention kind of a way. Last night I was watching this programming called Missing Links, and it is done by an American author and geologist by the name of Gregg Braden. And he brought to my attention during this series, and what this series is about, and I highly recommend it, is this gentleman is bridging the world between science, spirituality, and the real world. Now, it's a little bit of physics and it's a little bit of metaphysics. And physics is all based on calculations, a mathematical foundation that allows something to be proven, and the calculation works every single time. So it's fact, it's proven, it is solid evidence and truth. But as we are learning that physics is turning upside down on its head and it's crumbling apart at the seams, and we have no idea really what it's about anymore. The mathematical foundations are crumbling at the seams. Metaphysics is based on theory. It's a theory that we know it, we feel it, we understand it, but we can't prove it. And that is for several different areas of science, as well as different areas of paranormal to spirituality to psychology to psychiatrics to physics to mathematics to all kinds of, it's a very broad science. It's a very broad field. But Gregg Braden is bridging and connecting the dots. And these dots that he's connected is making this all make sense. One of the things he did last night was he brought up this book called The Prophet. And I've had this book in my library for a very long time. I don't know where I got it or who gave it to me or where I found it, but I've had it for a very long time. And I remember back in the day when I had this in my hands, it was very, very profound. One of the sections in this book is about children. And what happened is that this book is about a gentleman that came across the seas on a ship to another island, another landmass. He was supposed to go back, but the ship left without him, and he waited for 12 years for the ship to return so that he could go back home to his family. In the meantime, he lived amongst these villagers, and he really didn't participate in their everyday activity. He kept to himself. He was more in a solitude type of a living conditions, just wishing and praying and hoping that ship would return. But the villagers found him fascinating, as well as they turned to him because he had something about him that they felt was special, a knowing, and they wanted to know what he knew before he got on that ship and left. So the villagers came to him, and each villager asked him a question. And this question was on children. One question was on children. Now I'm going to read this to you, and and it's not very long, it's less than a minute, and what I encourage you to do is just close your eyes and listen to this, because your children do not belong to you. You might think they do, but they don't. And just listen for a minute on what this philosopher had to say. Just close your eyes for a second and just listen. I know this is funky, but I hope you feel what I feel. And a woman who held a babe against her bosom said, "Speak to us of children." And he said, "Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls. For their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life goes not backwards, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children, as living arrows, are set forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends you with his might, that his arrows may go swift and far. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness, for even as he loves the arrows that flies, so he loves also the bow that is stable. I found that very profound. As my children were growing and they left the nest and I became an empty nester, I remember that first year and a half, I freaked out. I did not know what they were doing, who they were with. They never answered my phone calls. I didn't know if they were safe, if they had food, if they were hanging out with the right people, if they were doing drugs, if they were healthy. You know, when they live with you, you have all these answers. And when they leave, you still want to know the answers to these questions, but they have flown. They're that arrow that has been set free the moment they left your bow. On that day that they said goodbye, they're on their own. So I would encourage you to go back and listen to that again, because we gave them the foundation, the love that they needed, the strength that they needed, the motivation that they needed. We gave them the skills that they needed to go out into this world and to become wonderful human beings. And once you set them free, you have to understand you were the vessel in which they came through to live this life, to experience life, and to enjoy life. And there's that saying that God lives within you and through you. So your child is on his own mission with his own spiritual path, with whatever you want to call the source, living and enjoying life. Set them free. That's all you can do, because they do not belong to you. And just know in your heart that no matter what turmoil they're going through, what lessons they're learning, what terrible mistakes they're making, that this is the journey that they decided. This is the journey and the choices that they made that's going to make their foundation stronger and give them the experience that they need to raise their children, to give them the foundation that they're going to need as this world changes. Our foundation, I'm 58, was much different than the foundation that my children are giving their children. It's a totally different world. So my children had to learn all the bad lessons, the hard lessons, the tough lessons, because their children are going to be going through that. And they needed that foundation to pass that on to their children before they put that arrow in the bow and set it free. Something to think about. Charlie out.